Pros, save more on what you need to get the job done right. Right now at Lowe's. Get 15% off select custom entry and interior doors. Plus, save $80 on the DeWalt 20-volt Max 2-tool combo kit. Now just $169. And at the Lowe's Pro Desk, bring us your materials list and get a quote in minutes. Handwritten, a photo, or even a sticky note is all you need. Keep your jobs moving faster and on budget at Lowe's. Valid through 7/8 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Brian, if we turn our attention to Washington, this was a team that were within touching distance of a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. Things very much went off the rails last season, unfortunately, primarily because of an injury to Jaden Daniels, whose durability has always had a bit of a question mark over it. And that's one question mark over the Commanders. There are several others after a lot of roster churn. A roster that was, they backed veterans to come in around Daniels in the first year, and that worked out really well. And then they suddenly got old overnight. So there's quite a lot of surgery needed in DC if the Commanders are to get back to where they hope to be. Yeah,
it's one of those unusual situations, Connor, and we see it time and time again. Like, players will come in and give you that boost for a year. They know how to play in the league and to win games and win close games is exactly what a new head coach and Dan Quinn needed at the time. He obviously was under pressure in the sense of he's coming in off a really good time in Dallas as defensive coordinator, but obviously this kind of stigma of what happened in Atlanta kind of still leads him to a situation where people are questioning whether he's the right coach. But he kind of quickly gets a good squad together for that particular season. But last year it was derailed by numerous injuries, and numerous injuries to older players because, as you say, the longevity for them to continue playing wasn't there. Some are still there. You look at that year with Wagner, but wasn't the same thereafter. Jaden Daniels, first year, lights it up. NFC Championship game. Let's be fair, he overachieved big time. And even it was very evident come the championship game how much they were behind the Philadelphia Eagles. But I don't think things helped last year is when they went to the season. McLaurin was looking for the contract. He wasn't at camp. There was all these little niggling stories in the background prior to the season starting. They never really resolved themselves. And then they got off to a slow start. Jaden Daniels gets injured. I felt he rushed him back. He gets a second injury. It was a disaster from there on in. And I think Dan Quinn was questioning whether he'd still be there, but ultimately I think other people have paid the price because like you think of Cliff Kingsbury, how much he was sought after to be the offensive coordinator. But the other teams, he gets the job. He's not there now after 2 years. There was conversations last year about him potentially becoming a new head coach in the league again after his time in Arizona. That's quickly gone away. I think they're taking a bit of a gamble. Offensive coordinator coming in David Shook. He's never coached in the league properly. Former quarterback. He was with the Lions for a period of time. I think there's a lot of questions unanswered. But yet, you look at it in terms of the draft, and they did some nice things in the draft. And I think the draft fell well for them in particular positions that they needed to address. So you would expect a bounce back. I think it's a bit of you look at the teams around the league this year, Connor. I think you can get a sense from majority of teams what you feel they're going to be this year. But right now, I think the Commanders are one of those unusual teams that I'm not entirely sure what we're going to see from them early on in the season.
Kieran, it's hard to argue with that final point from Brian there. I find the Commanders one of the more curious teams looking at the season ahead because we saw what they could do. Whether or not they overachieved 2 seasons ago, they played what was in front of them and they got the whole way to the championship game, producing some incredible victories when they got on a roll. So there is capability there. There is serious coaching experience there in Dan Quinn. They have the quarterback when he's on the field, and they have some of the right pieces around them. But I think that's also a good point that they lose a lot in Cliff Kingsbury's exit, and again, we don't have to look too far around the league last season to see how blue chip offensive coordinators departing the building, the Lions being one example, didn't end well for the team that lost them, and they're taking a risk on David Blau coming in.
Sold! Here are the keys to your new home. New beginnings sound exciting. From a new marriage to a new home, having access to legal help comes in handy. With Legal Shield, you can connect with a designated law firm that knows your state laws, helping with prenups, real estate contracts, and even wills and estate planning, starting around $1 a day. Legal Shield. Real lawyers, really affordable. For 10% off your annual subscription, sign up at LegalShield.com today. That's LegalShield.com. Legal Shield does not provide legal representation or advice. See a plan for complete terms.
To replace him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's question marks everywhere with this team. Just to go back to 24, I think we can all agree I'm not going to call it a fluke, but everything fell their way. in 24. So it's kind of hard to get a read on Daniels is just yet because he hasn't really, we haven't seen the full package. I was very, skeptical on his size and his weight, and I think that bore last year. I mean, he got knocked around. Does he have the durability to play in the league? I mean, he's not the biggest dude. Even if he puts some weight on, he's still undersized for quarterbacks in this league. So, I mean, there's a lot of question marks with him, and it starts with him. If he's not on the field, I mean, do you trust Marcus Mariota to lead this team to any kind of respectable, record in the East or even in the conference itself? Question marks. How will all these free agents? They kind of went back to 24 and they just blew a load of money on free agents, bringing in Leo Chanel, Rashad White, Chig Okonkwo. They brought Chase on over from the Patriots, Odafe Owe. So they've been spending, and they still also have a huge chunk of money left. I think they got $70 million under the cap. So it's almost like they're not quite Cardinals and Dolphins mode, but it doesn't look like they're really, aiming for 26 to be any kind of big year. I got a lot of questions over the defense too. I know they spent big with Chanel. They drafted Sonny Styles. But will it all come together like it did in 24? Question marks too about the GM. I mean, we talked about Monty Austinford in Arizona. I think Adam Peters is under a huge amount of pressure too, because there's little whispers about what was going on with Kingsbury and him in the background. I think Kingsbury looked around and said, "Nah, I don't like what kind of roster we got going on here. It's a mix of kind of older free agents and unproven draft picks." And Peters hasn't really had that great of a draft when he's been there. I mean, he brought in Quinn, but as the head coach, but he's hit with, we'll say, Krosky, Merritt, and Daniels, but there's been players like Ben Sinnott at tight end, Trey Amos, a corner. Players like that who haven't really hit the league. So I think there's a little bit of pressure on him too. And you got to look in the grand scheme of the division. Everyone's projected to improve, measurably in 2026. And there's huge question marks over the Commanders, like where we talked about the McLaurin situation. Yes, getting Rashad White's a nice pickup in the running back room, but you look around the wide receivers, it doesn't really inspire you a huge amount. Not really seeing, Van Jefferson back there and De'Ami Brown, Traylon Burks. It's kind of like a hodgepodge of free agent wide receivers. So I do like what they're doing in some regards on defense, because obviously that was a disaster last year, letting up a huge amount of points. But, again, it starts with Daniels. Can he stay healthy? Is he durable? And it's the same question I had in 24. Is he durable enough to last a 17 game season? Because if he can show it this year that he's got enough to stay on the field, then I'll believe in them a bit more. But until that happens, I'm really skeptical on what the Commanders will do. I think it's 7. 7 is the over under for wins. That's probably their ceiling this year. I just don't see any. Also, the hell of a, I mean, they got Eagles, Cowboys, Seahawks, Colts, Giants, 49ers, and then the Eagles again to start the season. So it could go south pretty quickly in Washington.
Craig, Brandon Ayuk is making come hither eyes at the Commanders. Very much wants them to come and get him and join his former teammate Deebo Samuel in Washington. That might add a bit of spice to their wide receiver room in more ways than one. Where did the Commanders fit in this division, though? Like, I'm still kind of scratching my head and going, are they in quiet rebuilds? Like, did they write off last season because Daniels is injured, or do you go that they genuinely went bust to boom to bust?
I have no idea. The only thing that I can kind of gauge from this Commanders team is that they didn't like what they saw in 2025. So rather than making little changes, what they decided is, we just need a complete scheme reset and philosophy change, and we're just going to go for it. Because you look at the difference in the defensive coordinator, they're going to go from man to zone.
I'm thinking of, just to make Brian smile, that Father Ted scene where he just has to knock the little dent out of the car and ends up destroying the car. No, just knock it a little bit this way. Just knock it a little bit down.
It feels like that, because they literally are. They're going to a completely new defense under Deron Jones that's going to be completely different to what they were running last season. And then the biggest change is going to be offensively. Cliff Kingsbury ran 1,279 plays out of no huddle last year. That's 815 more than the team in second place, which is an obscene amount. So they are going from complete no huddle, just kind of let them do what they want, to a much more structured system, which I get because they want Jaden Daniels to kind of be a little bit less risky, I guess. And obviously their offensive line isn't the best anyway. So they need to rein it in a little bit, but it does seem like such a big bang that it could just backfire on them completely. You know, like the others said, they've made some big signings there, but they have lost a lot of experience. You know, you're replacing Bobby Wagner, who is a Hall of Fame level linebacker, and you're replacing him with what was de facto some people's favorite player in the draft in Sonny Styles. But are you going to get that impact straight away? Because I don't think you will, and I think there'll be teething issues there. As good as he is, it does really feel like boom or bust for this team. Like, they could chart anywhere. They could be the worst in the NFL. They won't be the best in the NFL, but they could shock a few people. But it literally feels like just scattergun approach. Like, we're just going to try and change everything and hope that the best comes out of these players. And I just don't feel like they have the roster to be able to do that.
Sold! Here are the keys to your new home. New beginnings sound exciting. From a new marriage to a new home, having access to legal help comes in handy. With Legal Shield, you can connect with a designated law firm that knows your state laws, helping with prenups, real estate contracts, and even wills and estate planning, starting around $1 a day. Legal Shield. Real lawyers, really affordable. For 10% off your annual subscription, sign up at LegalShield.com today. That's LegalShield.com. Legal Shield does not provide legal representation or advice. See a plan for complete terms.